Level 989.
Welcome to a 989 on Health Extra. These quick supplements should help ease any withdrawal symptoms you may experience while waiting for our next full episode. So, Mike, what's on today's agenda?
I recently came across an interesting article I'd like to share, but I'm a bit concerned about any further bad press when it comes to vegetables. There's already a lot of scary news when it comes to veggies. Everything from E. coli with spinach to salmonella with tomatoes, and I don't want to give y'all another reason to avoid veggies. But it's an interesting story. How can I not tell it? The basis for today's episode can be found over at livescience.com, and I recommend you check our show notes to use the link you'll find there and read the article itself. Veggies. Okay. Especially as kids, the taste of many vegetables can be very unpalatable, especially on a plate that's surrounded by all the gravies and cheese sauces and salty savoriness that is a modern dinner. These days, an unpleasant tasting food usually doesn't mean more than you've encountered a flavor outside your comfort zone. Wait a minute, this is neither a cheeseburger nor a French fry, I declare. But back in the hunting and gathering days, a sour or a bitter taste was often a warning flag that a food was spoiled or poisonous. A recent review in the January 2018 Journal of Clinical Toxicology relates hundreds of reports from poison control centers in France, over 350 reports in just 4 years, and all of these reports are of food poisoning after eating bitter squash. Now, typical symptoms of food poisoning include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. They aren't typically severe or life-threatening in an otherwise healthy person. But in these instances, there aren't strains of bacteria making people sick, but something called cucurbit poisoning. Okay, so what is a cucurbit? Well, a cucurbit is a gourd, a type of vegetable that includes a wide variety of plants, from pumpkins to squash to zucchini, watermelon, even cucumber. And with that last one, cucumber, well, you can definitely see the connection between cucurbit and cucumber. One thing to remember about plants is, while it seems amazing that there are so many varieties that we can eat, so many tasty plants, right? Well, there are hundreds of varieties of plants that are too tough, too strongly flavored, or too bitter to be any good for human consumption. You just won't see those in the store. So, over hundreds of years, many veggies that had strong, bitter flavors were carefully crossbred with more bland varieties. Perhaps the bitter version of a plant had a desirable characteristic, such as better resistance to bugs. And if we crossbreed the bitter version with the bland version, maybe we can meet in the middle and make a more useful variety. But those bitter versions were bitter because of specific chemical profiles. And the fact that most humans would just naturally avoid bitter foods is a good indicator that bitter often means no. Some members of the cucurbitaceae family can produce chemicals known as cucurbitacins, which taste bitter and can have toxic effects on human cells. And there can be some unusual effects from cucurbit poisoning. Hair loss. According to the article, 2 women in France began losing their hair as a result of eating bitter gourds. It's still early days on exactly what caused the hair loss, but about a week after eating bitter plants, one woman had pumpkin, one woman had squash. Both women experienced substantial hair loss that affected large parts of their bodies. It's suspected that toxic chemicals in the bitter plants have a similar effect on hair follicles as chemotherapy drugs, which can lead to temporary hair loss. Now, it occurs that in both of these cases, the hair is growing back, but since hair grows at only half an inch per month, it would take a while to regain a full head of hair, especially if you typically keep it long. Now, these gourds aren't plotting to hurt us. The chemicals at fault are called cucurbitacins, and they're present in the plants to deter herbivores. That is, they taste bad, so animals won't eat them. And these chemicals are actually a form of steroids, versions of which can also be found in some mushrooms and some marine mollusks as well. You might imagine that by this point in modern agriculture, we've weeded out any plants that are unpleasant or dangerous. But keep in mind that the veggies in the produce section at your local supermarket may have arrived there from dozens of different countries, all with widely different environments. Perhaps some wild pumpkins are growing just outside the domesticated pumpkin patch, and the bees do their work, and some unintentional cross-pollination occurs between the tame and the wild pumpkins. You also have to remember that, while the genes in that cucumber you're about to eat that tell the plant to make high levels of cucurbitacin that have been turned off for hundreds of years, well, we still don't understand epigenetics well enough to say exactly why a gene gets turned back on. A new type of stress, a new type of chemical pesticide, something new in the soil, and suddenly the cucumber feels stressed, and these protective chemicals start getting produced again. So what's my point? Well, please keep enjoying your vegetables. Really, most of what we eat should be plants. But be aware and wary. If you're chowing down on some zucchini or some squash or some pumpkin, and it just doesn't taste right, don't eat it. The impacts of bitter cucurbits can be severe. Thanks again to our great listeners for sending in suggestions. If you'd like to send in your own topic for consideration, head on over to level989.com/contact and make it so.
That's all for now. You can find links to read more about today's topics at level989.com. Why not take a moment to rate or review us in iTunes, or give us a mention on social media? We can't help everyone if they don't know we exist. Don't rely on us as an alternative to medical advice from a professional healthcare provider. For the full disclaimer, please see our website. Thanks for listening, and now, go health yourself.